My name is Robert Martin, and I am the president of Mouvement québécois des adultes en formation. I hope I am a good leader to help the people to build this movement.
I'm a general secretary in the movement, and I try to advance all political position with the president.
My name is Claude Garon. I'm not elected. I'm an employee of the Association of Continuing Education Students here in the University of Montreal. And my main function is to write documents, all the documents necessary for the symposium and for the representation at the government and general information. And it's my role. My role is research and writing. This movement has been created in 2005 within the Quebec Learners Week. The Quebec Learners Week had existed since 2002. The first 2 years, the Association of Students, Adult Students in Universities, organized to participate in this week, organized a symposium where around 125 persons were invited for the weekend in Montreal. They came from all the regions of Quebec and all levels of teaching, all levels of education. The principal participation was from students from high school, general formation education and vocational education. And there were also a few persons from college and a certain number also of universities. But the focus was on high school students where the problems are the most important. And in 2005, at the third symposium, the students asked to create the movement to have a voice in adult education because this voice was and is still weak, and it was weaker at this time, and it was necessary, we thought it was necessary to do something about that because we believe that adult students may work, will contribute significantly to the advocacy of adult education. And it's like that the movement was created in 2005. Of course, the movement, the problem is that Quebec is a great country with a low population, and the distances between the regions are quite huge. So now the basic of the movement comes from the symposium. It's at this place that the students talk about their problems, made propositions, and adopted them in the General Assembly. And after that, it's the Administration Council, which plays the major role, because we don't have a strong structure in the schools. It's very difficult to organize, and it's still our challenge to do that. The movement is at its beginning. I don't know where it'll go in the next 10 years, but the problem is only at the high school level, there are 400 schools in all Quebec, and all the students don't have a structure of representation to represent themselves. So there is no association. When we try to communicate with them, we must use the direction of the schools, and we must rely on their collaboration. Usually it's not so bad, but it's still difficult. The main challenge is to have people in each school that would be active in the movement. But it has to be done, it is still to be done. It hasn't been done so far. So it's the main problem. For now, but we have been recognized by the Conseil supérieur de l'éducation, which is the organism which counsels the Minister of Education, which gives his opinion to the Minister of Education. And I know that this council is very enthusiastic about the idea that adult students have their own voice. Because specialists, a lot of people talk about adult education, and they do that with competency, and we have no problems with that. But the challenge, the real challenge, is to give a voice to students, adult students themselves. And it has still to be done in Quebec.
Adding to what Claude said, I also want to say that the great challenge this is the financial, because without financial we can't go so far in our movement. But we have some planned actions in the future that we can go and try to have some money in order to follow our political program.
The main reality that we must understand, and especially for high school students in general education, is the poverty of persons. Most of them have to live with half the income line considered as the poverty. In Quebec, the poverty line is around $18,000 a year for a single person. These students, adult students, generally have an income of around $8,000 a year. It's not sufficient to cope with all the needs in a society like us. When you're that poor, it's very difficult to concentrate on your studies because you have so many problems of relationships with your environment, all your environments. You have always serious problems, even to feed yourself enough and to feed your family. So it's a stress that is a real obstacle to enter education, to stay there until the person gets his diploma. And it's a terrible challenge because in Quebec, at the age of 20 years old, 28% of Quebecers don't have a high school diploma. It's a terrible thing in a developed society, a society known as a knowledge society, which requires very fine skills to get in the place work. So it's the main problem, I guess, and this situation is worse because they don't have access to public student financial plan. And they are the only group of adult students who don't have this right. There is a kind of discrimination toward the less educated people. And it is a problem. The less you're educated, the less you have access to education. And it is a scandal that in our society, in such a rich society as ours, that this thing does exist. And it's what we want to change. I think that a person who studies should benefit from a minimum income of $1,000 a month. I think it's a real strict minimum. You still be under the poverty line at this level, but it would be much better than it is presently. So it's the first thing that I think that we have to demand is to increase the level of income of these people. Otherwise, because a lot of people don't get, a lot of people who are already all in the system of education don't get their diploma because they are too poor. The difficulties are, the obstacles are so huge, so numerous, that people abandon their studies. And it's a tragedy because these people will stay undereducated. They will have a miserable life, they won't contribute to society, and it's a tragedy for these people. It's a question also social, because it's not, governments don't understand their interest in investing in education, in adult education. Otherwise, these people will spend all their life on social welfare, which is a big cost for society and for themselves, of course. Considering that it's basic formation. At the university, we don't have the problem with loans and scholarships. If there are loans, it doesn't matter. But at the high school level, considering that's basic formation, it must be entirely school scholarships. Otherwise, it's unfair. Because the principle is that a person has a right to a first diploma freely, completely freely. And it's not the case at all for now. For now, the Employment Ministry has a program to help people go back to school. But this program, the ministry of this ministry has not the same function of the Ministry of Education. So his role is to send back to the workplace the people the fastest as possible. It's why when low educated people go to these centers and ask for financial aid, they are too often answered that no, it will take too much time, we don't have money for that, you should go elsewhere, take this little program of adaptation to a function, a low function, with low salary, and it doesn't respect the choices of people. And this is not acceptable neither, because people know what they want to do. They are adults. They have the right of having a normal life, of trying to have a normal life, because these people have a terrible first experience of education, which was very difficult. Now they try it, it's a second chance, but this second chance must be a real chance. It's not for now. The barriers, of course, and the barriers are sometimes cultural. It's well known that when the mother has a low education, her children are at high risk of having a low education. So it's very important that the mothers are educated, and it should be a priority, and it's not for now. But the real solution don't come from the Ministry of Work or things like that. The real solution is to have scholarships from the Ministry of Education. This is the main obstacle to progress in building a strong adult movement. It's a very important point. This is another case of discrimination. Why do adults from high school, general education, as well as vocational schools, why these adults don't have the same rights of those of college and university. It's even the organisms which counsels the Ministry of Education said that this disposition shouldn't exist. These students of the high school level should be integrated in the law and having the same rights like other adults. It is the key for developing our movement. And unfortunately, for now, the government, for different reasons that are very complex, doesn't want to amend the law. Because this law has been adopted 35 years ago. At this time, there was no association of adults, even in university. The first associations were created in the middle of the 80s. So now the law doesn't cover the reality, and it's a real problem. It's 75% of the teachers in adult education in the high school, at the high school level, don't have this secure job. They are freelance, kind of freelance teachers, and some of them are paid at the hour. So these people are not really integrated in the pedagogic team. They are not real part. They just paid to go in the classroom, give their teaching, and after that they go back home. They have nothing to do with the school. So it's a problem because the system within the school is weak, because all these people are just come by and go home. So, and it doesn't exist on the regular system. It's only in adult education that this thing exists. There is no andragogical model. It doesn't exist for now. We are still in traditional teaching. And I don't see, the problem is that there are less programs in university for teachers in andragogia. So this doesn't exist. We're still in traditional teaching, usually. And in adult education, in general education, it's complicated. General, all the students are on personal progression. It's not everybody. There is no little teaching. People work by themselves, and if they have questions, they ask the teacher, and they are not at the same level necessarily. Some are closer than the end, some at the beginning. So it's very difficult for now. All the system is not logical, and it doesn't answer the needs of people. And moreover, there are not even specialists also in all these people who are, when you are 30 years old and you are still at the high school level in a country like Quebec, something wrong happened in your initial education. And all these people come from poor family with violence, drugs, alcoholism, sexual abuse, violence, learning disabilities, never diagnosticated and never treated, of course. But these problems have not disappeared just by the years go by. It still exists, but there's no solution for that. What will happen with these people? The probability is that they won't finish their program. They won't get their diploma because the same difficulties still exist. And we have to do, it's all right. Now, in universities and college, the law forces the school, the college and university to offer this kind of service. But in high school, there's a minimum, but not enough. People may need 3 or 4 months before meeting a specialist. So it's too long. You have time to abandon your studies. Now the new Ministry of Education said clearly that it is not interested in adopting a new policy and a plan of action, neither a plan of action. So for him, it's unuseful. It's not necessary. So you realize all the work that we have to do to press this government of changing his mind. And it's very difficult. It takes time. It will take years before we can do that. Because this government is very conservative. It's supposed to be a liberal party, but it's a conservative party which cuts subsidies at all levels of education, even universities. So for now, there is no hope on the short term that it will change. We have to hope that in 3 years, there is a new government more open to adult education. For now, we have not the means of doing sufficient pressure to change it. And because there is another problem. Adult education is never debated in media. It's completely absent of media. This is not for the population, this is not an important issue. Of course, the importance of the Learners' Week was obvious because this kind of event is essential to diffuse the knowledge of the problem, to make on the public opinion, to place in the public opinion this question. The week, it was the main use of the main aspect of the week. When it disappears, we lose something. We lose a precious tool to promote adult education. And it's a terrible mistake that made the government.